for that is because it's old. It's not got very much in the way of RAM. It has to shunt a lot of things around to actually use a live CD. That's all that is. If it was a modern machine, that would not happen. As it takes its time to fill out the icons on the desktop and things like that. But that's just because it's a really old computer. That's all.
You have to go through this usually daily. I'm not sure why people have to reboot daily, but I found that it's usually system updates, but it's also to do with the fact that some people will tell you have to switch off Windows when you don't use that because you could get malware, because basically being connected too much. And some people will advise you have to shut down the computer when you finish for security reasons. I've seen this lots of times. Which I kind of find strange, because I usually you can switch off the screen and just let the computer go into a CPU scaling thing and try to reduce the energy consumption of that.
Well, you see, you've hit upon a hang-up of mine, because for all intents and purposes, my distro does reboot after a upgrade, because I'm still... And I've never had a bad experience, but I'm very paranoid whenever I upgrade anything that it's going to break the system, and I run off the ethos that I'd rather know now rather than tomorrow when the machine does go off.
You probably don't have to reboot, though.
No, I don't. It's just to set my mind at rest and nothing's wrong.
You do know Windows forces you in Vista. It actually force you, and it would give you the illusion you can disable that, but then it would come up with this thing that gives you like a time limit, like 30 seconds, and I think they showed it in ZDNet. It was David Berlin who was showing how he was stuck with work. He was in the middle of the call, and he was forced to go. He had to stop the call because it forced him to go into reboot just because he did an update. And that just shows you they have several things there that give you a tick box, as far as I know, and it completely ignores them. It's kind of just to give you the feeling that you're in control, but they still override the settings, and that's kind of a scary thing.
Yeah, that's an odd thing when you think about it. Microsoft have a monthly update cycle, so that if they've got a patch ready in week 1, they still decide that they're not going to update it on your system. They're not going to give you the patch to fix the hole in your system that they've left for you for another 3 weeks. So they're going to continue to let you be exploited, potentially, for another 3 weeks. And then when you do get the update, they decide that it's that important and that critical to your system that you absolutely must reboot now to activate it. What planet are they? And the thing is, people are just used to that. They're used to all the different workarounds, all the different hassles that Windows give them, and they're just so used to it. They just assume that's what a PC does, that if you go to Linux, you're going to have to do all of the same stuff. If you use a Mac, you're going to have to do all the same stuff, and you just don't. Windows is the black sheep, essentially. Everything else seems to be reasonably sane.
I mean, me and Roy mentioned on the last episode, so I said to Roy, Windows is very good at putting the blame for any problems with the system onto the user. I mean, when I was a full-time Windows user, as it were, in the home, anything that went wrong with the system, I'd get the impression it was my fault. It's something I'd done, something I'd clicked, when in reality it wasn't, and it was the shortcomings of Windows itself. But it has a very good way of pushing that blame onto the user, I think.
That is one of my pet hates. But yeah, go on.
No, I was just going to say, because, and it's probably part of the reason why there's such a trepidation to move to Linux as well, because people think that's the norm. People think breakage is the norm, and they think, well, I might as well keep with my Windows system because I'm familiar with it, rather than go to Linux, new system, and I'm going to have the same breakage, because, as I say, Windows does imply blame onto the end user for anything that happens and that goes wrong.
It's not just Windows, it's Microsoft in general. If you find any, because this is not a company that just makes Windows, they make a whole variety of things. And if you, I think you're the person who did a very nice article about, if you put into Google, you put Microsoft blames, and you search for it, you get a whole long list. And basically Microsoft always likes to blame something else. They always have an excuse. Now, you might think all companies will do that. No, but some companies you'll find very often they apologize for mistakes they made. And I found cases, and I documented cases where they obviously lied to you about issues they have. One of the recent examples was the Windows 7 battery meter, I think with LG batteries or laptops or something of that sort. And they had an operating system issue, and they tried to blame it on the hardware, and then they actually delivered a software patch, and they did it silently in a way. And I think Mary Jo Foley was the person who caught this thing, and she basically said, "Well, this is the update that fixes the issue that doesn't exist." And she was
See, the thing is, you're not supposed to hold it that way. Sorry, go on.
Yeah. Yeah, you're holding it wrong. Yeah.
Sorry, go on.
That's Apple's got a customers actually defending the same ethos as well.
Yeah.
They'll probably say, "Oh, it is my fault." Yes, because the Mac has to be perfect, and that's what they usually say. They'll defend. I saw a person who had a GPU crash on a Mac, and he was trying to say, "Well, the computer was getting too hot, and it was trying to cool itself down. It just kind of shut down." And we had some fun about this in IRC channel. So they're very protective of the image or the status of the things they use. That's a magical thing, how people can be so attached to the brand and they'll just do.
Well, as I said, one of my pet hates is when Microsoft do. I mean, I don't really have much experience with Macs. I come from a Windows background, but one of the things that really annoys me is that people are frightened. Microsoft have got people frightened of their computers. They've got people frightened to touch their computers. So what happens if I go and install this? I better not install that, you know. And it's warnings and all these training wheels. And have I uninstalled it properly? Should I have installed that? It's a computer. I don't know. It's like to be a user of a computer. An average user, you shouldn't have to have any sort of tech background, any tech geek skills, IT skills. It should be able to be used as an ordinary user. If you want to quickly open up a family photograph and say, all right, there's red eye in that shot, and just adjust that and make even basic tweaks to photographs, you should be able to do that without needing a PhD. You know, or open a word processor document, write a document and send it to your local newspaper or, you know, church newsletter or something. You should be able to do that. You should have confidence to be able to switch on your computer and do things like that. And when Microsoft do not do that, they scare people from using their own computers. They really do. That's one of the reasons why I'm doing my screencast, is to give people confidence and saying, look, you can do it. You know, you thought that you maybe couldn't install an operating system. Well, guess what? I'm hoping to talk you through it in such a way as it gives you confidence to try it, to give you a basic grasp of something that you never thought in a million years you could ever dream of being able to do. In my case, I'm demonstrating on Mint, and hopefully, if they come to Mint or to Ubuntu or Debian or whatever, that's all good. And if they spend a while in Mint and then move on to Fedora, that's all good. You know, it's to bring them to Linux and to empower them to think, this is your computer, you can do this. All you need is some basic encouragement and basic confidence and not being patronized, essentially, and give them the confidence to think they can do it and give them a place to build from. But Windows does not do that. I've seen that over and over and over again. People who are ordinarily very intelligent and very capable, they're frightened to touch their computer because Windows is so terrible and it's the norm, it's what they know, it's what they expect. Sorry, I was starting to rant there, you know.
It's what we'll do is there's a few other bits and pieces which I'd love to get Gordon's input on. And funnily enough, one piece has just literally come into me as we've been talking, Varsity referring me to this link, and it's actually quite relevant. I was actually going to start by just asking Gordon if he had one FOSS application of choice that he had to recommend above all others. What would it be? What's your, I don't want to say the word favourite, but what's your most mission critical free and open source application that you use? That's putting you on the spot now. Have you got one?
Well, I've actually got, I don't know, 4, maybe 5 that I install on every distribution. These are the things that I look for to install right out the box. Audacious.
Yep.
I love the idea. See, I listen to podcasts, audiobooks, mainly, not so much music. So I like it to be just a little icon on the status tray on the